Good morning, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
So you can be seated and get comfortable, and when you're ready, you may begin with your opening statement.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Roberts, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the time you've spent with my fellow applicants and me. I want to thank my wife, Lucy, who's here with me today, and some of my colleagues, Kirk Schuler and Manuel Cornell. I really appreciate their support, and of course the support of my family and friends who are watching from afar. 4 children would have liked to have been here today, but that would have meant playing hooky, and so the trade-off was they could watch me on YouTube later, so that's pretty good. My legal career began with this court, and I hope it ends here someday. I was the jokester law clerk who put a sign in his window that said, "Send help," so everyone in the light court could see it. Who knew that I could be the guy to answer the call nearly 20 years later? Maybe. I've sat in this courtroom as a law clerk and as a bailiff. I've repeatedly stood in this well to argue for my clients, including as recently as last month. Now I'm sitting here telling you why I want to bring things full circle so that I'm one day sitting up there, trying to fill the seat once held by my mentor, Chief Justice Mark Cady. I was born and raised in and near Joliet, Illinois. My parents and grandparents were an integral part of my upbringing. They imparted core values of justice, mercy, humility. They showed me that nothing in life is given, it's earned through hard work. They helped me gain the grit that served me well in my career and my life. I then attended Augustana College and then moved to Iowa for Drake Law School. My formal education culminated in a judicial clerkship with Justice Cady in this court. Working closely with the justice, I was able to take my book learning at Drake and put it into practice in analyzing some of the most difficult legal questions presented in the state. I also had a special view of the legal profession and what it means to be an ethical professional. I could think of no better bridge to my legal career than the time I spent with Justice Cady. After clerking, I moved into private practice, eventually joining my current firm and becoming a partner. For several years, I've maintained a busy practice, primarily involving complex business litigation. I've included in my application some examples of my experience that I'd be happy to discuss with you today. I've learned more than I thought possible about trust-preferred securities, fire hydrants, lotteries, grade apes, and so much more. I've worked to advance our profession and uphold its values, including by serving in bar leadership roles, providing pro bono legal services, and striving to support and advance diversity in the profession. I'm proud to be an Iowa lawyer. The background of my experiences, however, I've long held the goal of becoming a judge. I enjoy my practice, my clients, my colleagues, the bar and community services I get to do. It's hard to think about ever disrupting those things. Justice Cady's passing helped me realize that there's no time like the present to pursue our dreams, and there would be no greater privilege that I could experience than to be appointed to the Iowa Supreme Court. I knew now was the time to listen to the call to a vocation of public service as a member of the judiciary. And beyond my call to this work, I know I have much to offer. It's been a long time since the court had a new member who moved directly from private practice to the bench. I've worked daily with clients, opposing counsel, and colleagues to apply Iowa law while utilizing our court rules. My work has been in industries that are core to our economy, including healthcare, finance, and manufacturing. I would bring a fresh perspective to the court about the practicalities and challenges of the law in our system of justice as it's being experienced in conference rooms and courtrooms throughout the state. Of course, my experience as a law clerk also gives me special insight into the court and its operations. I witnessed firsthand the justices in action and contributed directly to Justice Katie's work and that of the court as a whole. This is a unique perspective compared to the other applicants and gives me confidence that I would hit the ground running if I was the next justice. I also know that at its best, the court excels as an all-star team of the best and brightest of the profession. I've observed the benefits to the state and its citizens of having a court that enjoys a chemistry that permits it to operate collaboratively at a high level of excellence. We are, after all, stewards of a judicial system that will outlast us. Moreover, in a time when there's increasing division and doubt sowed about our institutions or in our institutions, the state needs and deserves nothing less than a rock-solid judiciary led by the Supreme Court. I'm well prepared to maintain the court's strength for decades to come. Everything I am and everything that I've done up until now has led me to sit before you and tell you humbly but confidently that I'm ready to be our next justice. I'd now like to answer your questions so that I can leave you confident in picking me as one of the 3 nominees to advance to Governor Reynolds. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we do have questions today, and we will begin with Mr. Spies.
Good morning, Mr. Miller.
Good morning.
I greatly enjoyed our opportunity to visit together, and there's no greater justice than Justice Katie that one could strive to emulate. However, I did ask you about your other experiences with some of the other justices, including Justice Strite and his literary flair. Is there a quality or characteristic you think you could especially lend to the tone of the court and the collaborative work that the court is required to carry out?
Well, I think I excel at getting along with all people and all types of people. I've had some experience with the current justices in other contexts, and I think I also try to approach things with a sense of humor and openness to others' thoughts. I think if we're think of the court as a chemistry, I'd be the base. I can take on the acid. I can contribute what I can to keep the mix going well. And so I think those are things that come to mind.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bloom?
My notes are not real clear, and early in your legal practice, you worked for the Department of Justice in an appellate practice role that was a little unique. I don't think I'd seen that before on an application. Could you just comment for us on exactly what that was and how it improved your qualifications?
Yeah, thank you. I had the opportunity to intern for the U.S. Department of Justice in a staff in their civil division that does appellate work specifically, and that group sort of sits next to or under or beside the Solicitor General's office, and the Solicitor General's office is the U.S. government's primary source for appellate work with the U.S. Supreme Court. This group worked at the circuit court level primarily. It was very interesting and work. I got an opportunity to spend some time in Washington, D.C., and these are folks doing appellate work behind the scenes but at the highest levels. And so I had an opportunity to do research and writing and work with them. And so that was a very good experience for me as I was continuing my education.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stanger?
Hi, Bill.
Morning.
Morning. Or afternoon, maybe. Morning. One of the important roles of our Supreme Court, as you know, beyond just writing opinions and getting it right, is servant to the entire state of Iowa as the leadership of our branch. What experience can you share with this commission that you have had with servant leadership? And, what would you bring to the court in that respect as far as servant to the state?
Yeah, absolutely. My experience throughout, I've done these interesting and fun things for paying clients. I've done the pro bono world, but I've also had just a great deal of experience with bar associations, on court committees, in community groups over time. I wouldn't be the guy I am today but for those opportunities to do work that didn't tie directly to a billable hour, but contributed to the community and sometimes the community writ large, the whole state. And so I think I've had a lot of opportunities like that, I fully grasp the importance of the servant leadership that the court provides.
Thank you. Mr. Horbach?
I have no questions.
Mr. Goodman?
No questions.
Mrs. Sinclair?
No questions.
Mr. Bevel?
No questions.
Ms. Law?
No questions.
Mr. Gray?
Well, I'm going to ask a question. Because one of the discussions we had, and it's unique, is you helped out the Bonobo Preservation Society or something like. Can you tell us about that, please?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a Ape Cognition and Conservation Institute, and the Great Ape Trust is what it was called once upon a time. And so that's a colony of bonobos that happen to live just down the road from us. I mean, we're within shot of them. And they were a group that was studied and did scientific research in the Atlanta area. There was an Iowa businessman interested in bringing them here and built this fantastic facility on the east side of Des Moines and brought them here. And then over time, some disputes got going about who was going to be in charge, for lack of a better way to just cut to the chase. And, we were asked to get involved to help the new guard resolve these issues. And so we were able to assist them, and that led to an evidentiary hearing in federal court, where we were discussing what would be the future of these apes. And I tell you, if you get a chance, you Google Kanzi, K-A-N-Z-I. I mean, it's just quite incredible. The communication, they're communicating at a level that you just kind of bowl you over. And sure enough, it's a resource here in Iowa. So, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pearson?
Thank you. When we met, we talked about pro bono experience that you had had and the positive impact that has had. And I know one of the areas that you discussed was guardianship. Would you care to expand upon that and share with us how that has had a positive impact for you?
Yeah, thank you. I'd be happy to. So I do civil litigation, and that's not quite the same as guardianship and conservatorship. I mean, occasionally come across guardianship and conservatorship needs in my practice. However, when I was at Drake, I did the elder law clinic, and there one of the things we did was to learn the guardianship and conservatorship statute. I wanted to continue to do that, and I thought, I know this. This is an area that for a lay person can be quite intimidating, even the name of those titles. But I've had the experience on several times where somebody had a need, whether it was a child with special needs or a parent that's aging or otherwise, and they need some assistance to kind of get over the hump with the court to put forward the evidence they need to get in position to provide that service as a guardianship and conservator. And I've kept, once you get that in place, you have annual reporting obligations, and then that kept me in contact with people that I was able to help with. And so just a great opportunity to do something outside my comfort zone or outside my regular practice, but that I've been able to carry over from law school, and I think has really had a good impact for some folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, when we spoke during your interview, I asked whether you were intentionally seeking an appellate position versus a district court position. I think you indicated you wouldn't rule out applying for a district court position, but you really felt yourself much better suited to the appellate court. And given that you were thoughtful about that, my question for you is, what do you see as the kind of the biggest issue or set of issues facing the court in the coming years, particularly the appellate court, the Iowa Supreme Court, and what strategies would you use to approach it? And whether it's substantive issues percolating up or it's administrative issues or a combination? Yeah,
boy. Good question. Thanks, Christine. I think as far as substantive issues, I think we've had a good run of a lot of new and different statutes that have been coming about. Of course, that's always going to happen, but some quite significant ones that will start percolating their way up to the court and will need to be addressed in a measured way, a thoughtful way. I think we're in seemingly, and I don't want to jump the gun, but seemingly in a time of transition for the court too. New mix of personalities, and that we're going to be going with a new direction where we've had a period of time of some pretty long of stability of the same set of justices, and so that new mix will be a challenge, and also I think an interesting thing, an important thing for the court. Administratively, I personally have the sense that there's quite a backlog, or at least a fair number of substantive court rules and other things to be considered and taken up that the court should dig into and spend some time with. So, strategically, I think we need to talk together as a court to determine priorities, think about some of those things that the court has more control over, the kind of the administrative docket and the like, and think about how those things will be addressed, what might need the greater attention sooner, what resources might be out there, whether it be bar association groups and otherwise that can assist, and figure out how to allocate those resources and tackle that, and as far as working together, try to do it with a smile and civility and move ahead.
Mr. Berger? Ms. O'Brien?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Sukup?
Thank you. We've all admired Justice Cady, and we can tell that with working with him that great admiration from all of us. How would you do things differently than Justice Cady?
Well, I am my own guy, and I think I'm a lot of ways like him personality-wise, but I have my own thoughts and approaches to the world. I think I'm benefited by having been in private practice longer than he would have had that experience. I think that brings a different view of the world a little bit that might push me in different directions than he might have occurred to him, or he might have approached. Maybe sharpened my elbows a little bit more too in time. So I think those type of things, it's hard to say until I see what it would be, but those come to mind.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Valentine?
Thank you. In your application, you write, "I believe I am a well-rounded attorney and counselor, not just a litigator." And I find it intriguing that you distinguish between those three roles. I'd like you to talk about how you see yourself in those three roles and how you think that would benefit the court.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. A real pleasure I've had in my career, and particularly after I made it to the point of partner in my firm and developed relationships and the depth of relationships with clients, is that I increasingly had their trust beyond the day-to-day. If there was a lawsuit pending and I was in the middle of it and helping them with discovery and writing and doing motions. And so I think what I've developed, and it's benefited all those parts, is both the ability to drop in and to deal with high-level litigation, or even things that are not that complex, but at the same time think about the practical and think about what's going to happen or what might happen for the business. And so I think that ability to see that full scope would be beneficial for the court, both that, we're talking about the nitty-gritty of the law, we're thinking about how it will apply and what the effect might be. And so I do think I have not just been purely in the courtroom constantly, but I think that's a strength, and I've had the opportunity to talk with and work with people in a lot of different other contexts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoytick, one quick question.
Day one, what do you think is the biggest strength you would bring to joining the Supreme Court, and what do you think would be the biggest opportunity for improvement?
Sure. Opportunity for improvement, I'll start there. I have had mostly a civil practice. I mean, I think that there obviously is a whole other world of criminal practice where I have some exposure and I have a set of skills I can bring to that and apply and work on. But My familiarity with those statutes and those principles would need to be, I'll need to catch up a little bit as I hit the ground there. But I would hit the ground running just with open-minded, the ability to take issues and consider them, consider the measured response that we need. I think I've drafted and worked on appellate briefs and opinions and the like. I think I fit right in and adopt my style to get ready to write and to get ready to work with my colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, our time is up, and we made it all the way around the table. We want to thank you for being here. Thank you for having guests with you today. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
And we wish you well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.